But kind of getting back to this though, real quick. Alicent also has a little bit of another romantic interest that isn't so shameful. She kind of gives Crispy Cole the nod for your feelings or love that you have for your queen and your duty or whatever she said. So have Alicent and Crispy been getting it on behind
I think
Viserys'
so.
back? You think?
I think so.
Or do you
Yeah.
think she's manipulating him?
No, I think. Yeah, you're right. I think she's just manipulating him.
I'm very curious. Whenever Westerling takes off his cape, or in that whole before
Yeah.
that, the whole altercation before Crispy, I was like, I know it's not going to happen, but I wanted Westerling to gut him right then and there.
I actually thought Kristen Cole was going to kill him because
I
in the
did too.
books, he's dead like 20 years ago.
Yeah, at this point, like obviously they made Crispy the Lord Commander now, but yeah, in the books he had already been Lord Commander. What did you think about Beesbury getting the old head smash? It just killed at the table. What did you think of that?
I mean, we kind of knew that he wasn't long for this world from the books. That whole scene was done really well because Alicent comes and she thinks we're ready to crown Rhaenyra, but she's like, "Oh my god, like Viserys just told me this thing," and they're like, "We've been planning this for." So they would have moved forward with it. It was obvious they were going to move forward with it, whether she had heard Viserys say that or not.
Yeah.
But what did you think of her being very adamant about like spare Rhaenyra? It's Viserys's daughter. What do you think? Like, how would that conversation have went if she hadn't heard that dream?
Well, so that's a good question. I will say this. I'm glad that they had her bring it up and have her play the opposite side, because if you would have went from last episode, her kind of making peace with Rhaenyra and, showing some genuine emotion for her husband, to immediately willing to backstab and put her on the throne just because Viserys said this thing about Aegon, I would have felt like it was kind of like shoehorned a bit, but they stayed with the consistency of last episode of like her wanting some sort of peace and also to honor Viserys. And it kind of shows that she is like truly thinking in her head. She believes she's honoring Viserys's wishes,
Right.
which she says, I'm sure he doesn't want his daughter killed and his brother killed. So the fact that they changed it to make her, a little bit more 3D in a way, I actually like it. I like the fact that they stuck with it. I think it could have worked just as well for it if they would have made Alicent just power hungry. But I think like what you said, maybe it would have been too two-dimensional, right? We get a little bit more of complexity within the factions now, which is also going to happen in the Blacks. I think on Rhaenyra's side, we're going to see some turmoil as well. And we'll have to see how that plays out probably in season 2. But yeah, I like that. I was kind of shocked when they all admit that they had been planning treason this entire time. In Beesbury's death in the books, it said he might have been thrown out the window, said he might have had his throat slit. There was many things, whether Kristen Cole did it or whatever. For me, I think it's probably the right call to make it look like an accidental death with Kristen, dribbling his head like a basketball off the table. But in a way, I kind of wish it would have been a little bit more brutal. Like if it had just been a throat slice, right? And then you really have Alicent like, whoa, what in the instead she's kind of like, oh my God, what has happened? This is a horrible accident. Look what's already unfolding in front of us. So like, I get the fact that making an accident makes it a little bit more digestible for Alicent being there. But at the same time, I kind of wish it would have been a little bit more like, for, no pun intended, cutthroat maybe.
Right. Well, they did obviously put a few other people. Well, they hung, one guy and then, right. So, I mean, very obvious that they're moving quick, and I thought was great. And they had to actually go find Aegon. And,
yes,
he didn't want it, which I thought was great, because that is going to play in a lot more with Aemond and Helena going forward. Because there's a lot of theories in the books actually that, and we kind of almost got a little hint towards it here. There's in the books, or it actually, it's not even really, I actually don't even know if it's a mention. It's not even one of the things that like Mushrooms mentions. It's just sort of a fan speculation, is that Aemond and Helena is actually the father of Aegon and Helena's kids. There's a lot of theories about that. And then we see him in her room when Alicent walks in. So that kind of plays into that a little bit more. And here he's saying, to Kristen Cole, I should be king. right? We've both been sort of disinherited by our birth. And then Aegon is saying to Aemon, I'll leave. You can, like, I don't want it. Like,
like, bro, I don't even want this shit. Like, just
right.
take it. And then the shot on Aemon's face as he walks away, I thought that was really
Mhm.
good. Also Helena, whenever she kneels, like kind of bends her head to Aegon in his coronation, she's actually facing Aemon, and Aemon is just
Mhm.
staring a hole through Aegon. And I'm like, man, this is cool. Like, this is really subtle.
Yeah, it was actually all of his coronation was very powerful because they did something really, really cool. He's walking in and the shot is entirely on his face. As he's walking into, the swords coming in, and he's beginning to realize
Mm-hmm.
all these people are sort of rooting for me, and I get
Yes.
to be king. Very different than, say, like Joffrey,
Yep.
because Joffrey just wants to be king because he's like, oh, I'm the king and I can do whatever I want. He doesn't want it, and I think he's going to sort of get into it, and then become sort of the character that he will become. But as they were placing the crown on his head, it was all out of focus shots, and he's like in the lower third, and it's showing everyone else's face as the crown is being put on his head. It was a very, very cool scene.
Yeah, and one of the things I liked most about it was actually the facial acting from the actor for Aegon, because we have kind of been led to this point, especially when having the carriage ride with Alicent and all those times before. We can tell that Aegon struggles. It seems obviously he's kind of evil, but he also does struggle with the fact that he was kind of shunned by his father, and he said he
Yes.
didn't like me. Like, I don't feel like Aegon particularly feels like he has anyone that cares about him. And his mother, even though obviously he deserved to be scorned, that probably plays on him too. Whenever she said, "You're no son of mine," he asked, Do you love me, mom?" And she doesn't really give him that answer that he probably was looking for. So whenever he was on stage being coronated and the people start cheering for him, his facial acting, you could tell he was becoming almost intoxicated by the acceptance of the audience. And this is the moment where I think Aegon says, "Oh, that's what it means to be king, to be liked, to be accepted by the people." And obviously maybe at first it all goes well, and then your approval ratings go down into the shitter after. But
Right.
I feel like it was really evident that he was realizing the praise that comes with being king. And I also wonder if he has any worries about all those little bastard boys that he's been dropping off down in Flea Bottom, because they showed the cut to the kid in the daycare fight club they had going on down there in Flea Bottom. Eric, one of the Erics, says, "Aegon?" He said he's got them all over the place. And it's like, oh shit.
Right.
Not good, Aegon.
What did you think?